English translation 459th contact. Sunday, 3rd February 2008, 0007 hours.
My best wishes for your day today, my dear friend Eduard.
Thank you. I greet you too, and be heartily welcome, Ptaah, dear friend. I completely forgot the last hour that today is the 3rd of February. So I wanted to leave half an hour ago, after I had done the bookkeeping with Silvano. When I wanted to go into the kitchen with him, he suddenly said that I should give my regards to my visitor. I replied that I was not expecting anyone else, because I had finished my work for today. He grinned and said that the 3rd of February was just around the corner, which made me a bit surprised because I was not thinking about my birthday right away. Only after a few seconds did my brain switch on, whereupon I said that I had actually already forgotten that day, but that I wanted to go to the kitchen to have another cup of coffee. So I did, after Silvano himself had brewed the coffee for me, which he often does for me. So I just came from drinking coffee, and there you are already waiting.
It is hardly half a minute since I have been here.
At least I have not kept you waiting.
It would not have been a problem. How far have you progressed with the Goblet of the Truth?
The way I see it, I should be able to write the end of the book on Tuesday, the 5th of February, which will be about 260 A4 pages. That is assuming that there is not something in the memory banks that comes out of the background again, which destroys my assumption. The actual old teaching of the prophets, that is to say the Goblet of the Truth, comprises 14 sections. After which comes my duty, which comprises another 14 sections which I had to write myself, according to certain thematic specifications, which Nocedemion has already recorded in the memory banks. The first part of the teaching of the prophets, that is to say the first sections 1 to 14 of the Goblet of the Truth, were designed by Nocedemion himself and were offered and taught by the individual prophets Enoch, Elijah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Emmanuel and Muhammad according to their time and according to the respective understanding of the language of the earth humans, after which I had to write the next sections 15 to 28 myself, first in the old style of writing and then in the good written language of today, according to the topic specifications in the memory banks by Nocedemion.
So you only needed about 5.5 months for this, whereas we expected 3 to 4 years. A very astonishing achievement, which could only have been achieved through your tirelessness and diligence. But with you, I have often wrestled with my astonishment and wondered how you managed everything.
Please do not embarrass me, and remember that I am only doing my duty and trying to do the best I can.
Try this probably does not correspond to reality. But there is probably no point in discussing this with you, because you will stick to your explanation of things anyway.
Well roared, lion. But remember, my son, if I did not constantly try to do my duty, nothing would have come of it.
Yes, but I just think that you are not simply trying to do your duty, but that you are doing it very consciously, dear Papa.
Ah, then let's let it go. Well, Bernadette said that she is leaving the 10th contact volume aside for now, and that she is reviewing the Goblet of the Truth first, so that it can go through the correction group again and then be printed as soon as possible. What do you think?
You are also one of the proofreaders, so you still have 2 or 3 more times to work with it.
That is true, but what do you think of Bernadette's proposition?
I can agree to that. But if this work is done, then it is imperative that the 10th volume of the Contact Conversations be completed and the book Zur Besinnung be tackled, and then the 11th volume of Contact Conversations. And this is of enormous importance for the Goblet of the Truth. Since it is the most important work of all in relation to the whole mission, you should make an effort to have the book translated as soon as possible, at least into the main languages that exist on Earth. The book should be distributed worldwide as soon as possible, because the fact that it goes out into the whole world is of very special importance.
We will follow your wishes regarding the order in which books are published. However, as for the translation of the new work, Goblet of the Truth, there will be difficulties, because it will have to be translated professionally, but that will cost a lot of money, which we do not have. For this, it would be necessary that responsible humans with sufficient financial means as sponsors would be involved. But to find such conscious responsible ones would probably be very difficult, because whoever is financially rich usually has no need to commit himself or herself to the effective truth and its teaching, as well as to a teaching through which humans can find the path of true love, peace, freedom, and harmony within themselves, and also bring all these high values to all earthly humanity. The Earth humans prefer to donate a great deal of money to religions, ideologies, and philosophies, as well as to wars, etc., because they believe they can buy their salvation or security with it. They thus hope to go to heaven and to be allowed to lie humbly and worshipfully at the feet of their imaginary, fictional God in the heavenly dust, or to be safe in their country from terrorist attacks, etc., if they advocate wars, from which they hope to profit if they put their money into them.
Your explanation is unfortunately frighteningly true, but nevertheless you must make an effort to be able to make the translations and the distribution of the work.
Of course we will try, but there are not many wealthy humans here on Earth who will stand up for selfless help. For donations for the translation, responsible humans are more likely to be found in our core and passive groups, as well as among friends and interested people who are committed to our mission and to the teaching of the effective truth. In this wise, small amounts of money could be raised, which would accumulate over time in such a manner that at least once the Goblet of the Truth could be translated into English, to which we could also bring in a professional who speaks both languages perfectly and could do the work, but only for a fee. Of course, a translation into Arabic and Chinese would also be very important. The Japanese translation will certainly be provided by the members of FIGU, Japan, who are very busy and have already translated various books and writings. English, Arabic, Russian, Japanese, Spanish, and Chinese would be the most important languages for the time being.
This is how I see the whole thing. And I think that English is the most important language into which the Goblet of the Truth must be translated for the time being. But Arabic, Chinese, Spanish, and Japanese must not be ignored, after which other languages must also be considered. I know that you will make an effort. Until then, as the whole thing becomes current, I guess Guido's book will be due, which you will correct and edit according to my wishes.
We work on it twice a week, at least as far as it is possible for Andrea. But it is going well.
This is gratifying, and I would not want to miss the opportunity to express my gratitude to all the co-workers, and to all the others who are working on this difficult mission and who are making every effort to ensure that there is constant progress and success. And I would also like to thank all the members of the worldwide passive group, as well as all FIGU friends and those interested in the mission, who will help you with their possible financial contributions so that the mission can flourish. But my thanks should also go to all those Earth humans who in the future will continue or renew their commitment to the mission and also support it financially. Also with regard to the necessary translations of the books and other writings into other languages.
Thank you very much for your words, and I am sure that you will receive the thanks of all those who are addressed by you.
Thanks are due to all those who recognize the truth and importance of the mission, who strive to live it and help it to bear good fruit, no matter what kind of efforts are made.
These are good words that I also endorse.
While I am at it, I would like to express my special thanks to all the members of FIGU Japan, because what they do and accomplish is admirable. They all do a really great and valuable work, the value of which cannot be overlooked.
Again, I can only agree with you, because it is truly admirable what remarkable humans they are and what they accomplish. But I would also like to mention our core group members in the same context, because without all of them, the mission would not have been able to grow to what it is today on a global scale. It is inconceivable where things would be today if they had not all made every effort to the best of their ability and financial resources and had not stood by me. We effectively owe everything to all of them for the great successes, but also to the members of the passive group, Figu Japan and all other Figu groups, as well as to those friends worldwide who gave us their financial support, and who also committed themselves to the mission with their own efforts and deeds, and continue to do so.
I also want to express my deep gratitude to them all.
Thank you for your words, which will be heard by all when this conversation report goes out into the world.
What I want to say about the Goblet of the Truth. I think it would be appropriate if a good introduction were written for it, for which I would like to ask Hans-Georg to do this, for which you must of course give him the necessary information. A community foreword would also be very useful for understanding the whole thing, although I think that several group members should produce one in cooperation, named after the individual authors, of course.
A community forward. How do you imagine this to be done if every author is to be named?
My idea is that several group members write a good foreword together and mark it with their names at the end. So the preface should be a common work. Hans-Georg's introduction should show the history and the coming into being of the Goblet of the Truth, while the preface should contain the meaning and importance as well as the value of the work and the mission connected with it.
I am sure it can be done. I will ask Hans-Georg if he wants to write the introduction, which he will certainly not say no to. And with regard to the community forward, I think all those members who want to participate will have to come forward and agree to it themselves. The members of the editorial group and some other group members might be willing to do this work. Every member can participate if they want to, I think.
Of course.
Now it just remains to be clarified who wants to join. It would be nice if every single group member would make a small contribution. It does not have to be much, because 1 or 2 sentences would surely be enough.
That would really be ideal.
Let us see what they say when I bring it up at the next general meeting. Let us be surprised.
A foreword that could be made by contributions from all group members would be in my mind.
Let us see what comes up. Then we can move on to something else.
Right. Then I want to give you very warm greetings and a hug from my daughters Simya, Se, and Plaja. But Asket and Nara also send you greetings and wish you all the best, as do my daughters. Especially Ikarina sends you greetings, then Quetzal and all the others who know you personally. But I am also to bring you greetings from our spiritual leadership, as well as from various persons you do not know personally, but who feel very close to you.
It is my great honor and pleasure. My loving thanks to all of you. And from my side, too, give them all my warmest greetings and my word that I think of them very often, and that I am always very happy and comfortable when I feel our common bond.
I will comply with your wish, which will make everyone very happy. You seem to miss them all quite obviously.
You do notice everything, my friend. I am just a simple human being with wishes and such.
Longing is probably rather the right word, I think.
You may be right, but let's talk about something else. Charles Robert Darwin, the Brit, actually studied medicine and then theology, and only later became a natural scientist. It is said that he suffered from an unknown disease for many years of his life. Do you know anything about it? I was asked about it, but I could not give any information about it.
Yes, I can tell you something about that. Because my father Svath, he was not in contact with Darwin, made a close observation with regard to Darwin, and recorded everything in an extensive work which I studied. From my father's records, it is clear that Darwin suffered from anxiety psychosis and was a severe hypochondriac who imagined many ailments, but suffered from a serious infectious disease in addition to that, which caused him great distress. He became infected with the disease germs in Latin America through so-called Benchuca bugs, type of blood-sucking bed bug. The bite of these blood-sucking bugs causes an infection, which leads to the so-called Chagas disease, which first develops in the stomach and heart. The disease itself is not contagious and still exists today, although it can be transmitted by blood transfusions, which is a cause for concern today, because blood donations contaminated by Chagas-diseased ones are spreading more and more in Latin America and are moving northwards, so it is already slowly spreading in the USA.
Unpleasant. But do you know anything else about new forecasts like weather, earthquakes, and seaquakes?
There is nothing unusual about the weather and earthquakes and seaquakes because they are within the limits of what has long been normal. What will be extraordinary, however, will be revealed on the 13th of February when the Australian Prime Minister, Kevin Rudd, will officially apologize to the Aboriginal people for the humiliating and degrading things that have been done to them over 2 centuries by the English immigrants and Europeans who have settled in Australia. Next comes an act of the German tax investigation and government, which in the so-called tax paradise of Liechtenstein bribes a traitor in the banking system for a higher amount of millions of euros and thus obtains a lot of data from black money investors, which enables them to prosecute the wrongdoers. The procedure of this kind is reprehensible because a bank employee is seduced to betray his bank and the bank customer through the use of state bribes. If the German Tax Investigation Department were to obtain the necessary data through its own efforts and powers, then that would be absolutely right. But what is going on here is wrong. Because a bank employee is seduced into betraying the bank and its customers and is horrendously rewarded for his shamefulness and for his criminal act by another criminal act. And that in the name of the German government. This proves their own criminal machinations. Tax evasion, tax avoidance, and tax fraud are criminal offenses and as such are to be punished by necessary laws. But the discovery of such criminal offenses must not be made equally by criminal acts which are also to be prosecuted by law, even if they are committed or initiated by governments themselves. But if this is not done, then justice is not satisfied and it is overruled. Then on 17th February, Kosovo is declared independent, which causes unrest in Serbia and Russia as well as in other states. Then 2 events occur that affect Cuba and the USA, as Fidel Castro officially resigns from his office of state, which he has held in a murderous manner since 1959 until the 21st of February. At about the same time, for the first time on the Earth, a defective U.S. spy satellite, which is threatening to fall to Earth and has a very toxic fuel content, is shot down and exploded by a U.S. Navy rocket at a very high altitude. However, the whole thing is not only for the purpose of destroying the satellite, but first and foremost for testing their secretly developed missile defense system, which is directed against the attack of enemy missiles and targets of Russia and China in particular. The same as the U.S. missile defense shield in Europe.
Then that is also discussed, assuming that the coward Bush is the initiator of everything, who spends his life acting like a brash schoolboy. But tell me, there will be a wide variety of states, with the USA certainly leading the way, that recognize Kosovo as independent. What about Switzerland? And about Fidel Castro? The matter of the assassination of U.S. President Kennedy in 1963 still leads to speculation. Also with regard to the fact that Castro was the initiator of the assassination.
That is true, because the man who never actually grew up but was stuck in puberty is cowardly, sectarian, and full of fear that something could happen to his life in the USA. And with regard to the recognition of Kosovo, Switzerland will unfortunately not hold back, which is a serious violation of the principle of neutrality. And with regard to the assassination of John F. Kennedy, it is to be said that Fidel Castro had nothing whatsoever to do with it. At the time of the assassination, Castro was busy writing a letter to Kennedy and asking him to meet with him to discuss and resolve certain conflicts. Castro was ready to reach out to Kennedy.
The puberty thing seems very familiar, just in a different context. And regarding the violation of neutrality in connection with the recognition of Kosovo's independence, I can vividly imagine that this will lead back to Calmy Ray.
I know what you are alluding to, and you are right about that too, both in terms of puberty and the president of the Swiss Confederation, Calmy Ray. But something else. As for the Goblet of the Truth, I have one more request. Please ask Marianne Wellinger if she would be willing to write a final word for the work.
Of course I will.
It would not be useful if you put the introduction and the preface at the beginning of the book, because there should be nothing before the actual book text. So you should put the introduction and preface at the end of the book, with the words supplementary introduction and supplementary preface, followed by the afterword. Only in this wise will the work be given its true value, for only when these words are added to the book will everything come into its own from the very beginning. Furthermore, I think it will be necessary to explain why the Goblet of the Truth is only being written down today.
You have hit the nail on the head with that one, because I have already been asked about that, and I've given the following explanation. In the old days there were very few literate people, because the people in general were not educated and therefore illiterate and were not able to read and write. So in this respect, it did not make sense to produce writings on a large scale. And those among the few scribes to whom the prophets assigned the task of writing down the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, or the Goblet of the Truth according to Nocedemian's instructions, falsified everything beyond recognition. In the old days, there were not yet any schools like today in which humans could learn to read and write in general, just as there were not any technical possibilities to copy handwritten notes. If something was already duplicated, then everything had to be copied by hand with great effort. But this was only possible if handwritten records were made. Hieroglyphics, cuneiform writing, etc. had to be laboriously copied. And even the scribes of these forms of writing were extremely few and far between, and were practically not to be found among the common people, but only among scholars. This is a fact that is consistently concealed in modern times, and gives the impression that many people were already familiar with writing and reading in ancient times, which is of course not true. Only in the modern age, which began in 1844, did reading and writing become widespread among the humans on a large scale, and the technology of duplication and mass production of books, writings, journals, and newspapers, etc., was developed on a large scale. And it was not until the end of the 20th century that the electronic distribution of books and writings, through computers and in the form of the internet, developed in such a wise that everything could be easily distributed around the world. All this was already foreseen by Nocedemian and the Arahat Athersata level, which is why the whole thing was prepared and aligned in such a wise that the Goblet of the Truth in modern times, and thus Nocedemian's teaching of the truth, teaching of the Spirit, teaching of the life, should be brought in its final form and in its entirety and distributed worldwide. But this is to happen in modern times, because only at this time all technological and electronic conditions are given which make the whole thing possible. And so it was also planned for this time that no longer only parts, but the whole teaching was to be brought, and no longer to be recorded by commissioned scribes, who from time immemorial have always falsified everything beyond recognition, but that the last announcer of the Nocedemian lineage would record in his own hand the goblet of the truth, and the further parts of the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, and with the help of his loyal ones would process them and spread them worldwide.
This statement is important and should be included in the following preface. But we have interrupted ourselves with the predictions, about which the following is to be said until I come to my next visit, which will not be until the 6th of March because I am very busy. If you have something of importance, you can turn to Florina as a mediator. So then, what is extraordinary will happen in the Gaza Strip, because Egypt will follow Israel's example and also build a high wall against the Palestinians along the border. 79. This is all said, for I have nothing more extraordinary to report until then. So I will leave now and be back here in the early evening of the 6th of March. Farewell, Eduard, my friend.
Bye, and farewell to you too.